Thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. So please give us a subscribe. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm here with Cara McCutcheon, and we're going to talk a little bit about NIL. We're going to talk a little bit about the 2024 schedule. Anyway, how are you doing, Cara?
Doing good. How are you?
Oh, I'm doing quite well. You know, the NIL was, let's see, it came public about 3 weeks ago where, I don't know, Walker Jones and those went to Congress and they were trying to get a benchmark. And now a Tommy Tuberville bill is circulating through the Senate about NIL. What do you think about the current situation of NIL in college football?
Really the word I want to use here is inevitable. I think that this was always going to happen. We're in the very beginning stages of NIL, and I think that we were always going to see some of this stuff go into effect. And these questions arise. I think in the beginning, it was a nice premise, and then what it turned into, there was really no regulations. So, of course, it got out of control. And I think that that's going to lead to some of these things we're going to see as it kind of shapes up. But we're just kind of in the beginning of this. So I think inevitable is the best way to kind of describe it.
Well, my favorite thing is the IRS has just come out, and apparently collectives have been saying their people's donations are tax deductible, and the IRS is like, no, that's illegal. Somebody is going to go to jail over this, and there's just so much that is happening in the NIL space at the moment.
Well, even the biggest one on that is the companies, and telling companies you should donate with their NIL for tax deduction. And the IRS is coming back and saying it's not a charity. There's nothing here that's actual envelope as a charity. And the thing when it comes to these booster form, collectives and those things, people are just saying these things because they hear them, but there's no actual service. There's no the charity part is missed in the donation. Unfortunately, giving people money to just come to your school is not really a charity. So when you focus things out there like that, of course the IRS is going to come back and say, no, that's not actually enveloped under this. So you're not going to have this as a deduction. So
what do you think the end game is here?
I think it'll be hard to see where they go as far as, kind of getting with the government. But I mean, they're going to have to get involved on some level, and the regulations are going to happen. And it's just, they really just need to use this to get rid of the NCAA, because there's just no rules. There's no rules. There's nothing. And it's only going to cause further problems. And they really just need someone who can come in and start making a more established regulation across the board.
Yeah, interesting indeed. Anyway, let's change subjects a little bit. The 2024 schedule has come out, and Ole Miss is no Alabama, no Auburn, no Texas A&M, Oklahoma at home. What are your thoughts on the schedule?
I liked ours. I thought ours was really well done. I'm excited to play Oklahoma. I'm actually kind of glad we didn't get Texas first, because we've kind of played them in, within the last few years. So we haven't played Oklahoma except for 1999. So I think it'll be fun to play Oklahoma to start out. I also liked some of the other matchups that we get to keep, the Arkansas, the LSU. I'll kind of miss a little bit of Alabama, but to me personally, interchangeably, if we see Alabama and Georgia every year, I just feel that same kind of style competitive part that Alabama is just consistently there. Some are like, oh, but you don't have Bama. And I was like, but we have Georgia. So same game, different team.
Yeah, Georgia is actually a more historic rivalry than Alabama is. And over the last 30 years, that's changed a little bit. But previously, that's the way it was.
Mm-hmm. I kind of like the separation from Auburn the next year. I think in recruiting, especially with how Freeze is recruiting, the best kind of thing you want is not to play them regularly. Just you don't want that win-loss record for right now. So personally, I like that game kind of going away for a little bit.
Yeah, but that also makes next year's game with Auburn
So
into a
yeah.
Super Bowl, like a legit Super Bowl. If this is the first time and the only time that Freeze knows in the immediate future that he is going to get Ole Miss, that game just got amped up even more than it was.
That's true. And the same if you look at from the A&M perspective of, Lane talking about Jimbo, they want that win because God forbid we win a third time and, that goes into Lane getting 2 years of just harassing the A&M fan base, and they definitely don't want that. So
Honestly, they kind of deserve it.
I love it, especially living here in Texas, and not far from A&M. Personally, I love it. I think it's hilarious. But yeah, I think that's a game that all A&M fans definitely want to win.
Yeah. And what are your thoughts on some of the other schedules around the league?
I thought they did a fairly good job leveling it out. Actually, the only one I felt that was just really given a grace was actually A&M. I just don't understand the A&M schedule there. They haven't played Georgia except for the one time in 2019. Georgia's never been to Kyle Field. They've never been to Kentucky. They've only played Kentucky at home once in their time here. They've really just given A&M a really nice schedule, actually. They gave them a pretty decent I feel they could have maybe given them at least a Tennessee in there, maybe something. But
Yeah,
I mean, their
absolutely.
3 hardest games, essentially, if you look at it, are all at home. LSU's at home, Texas is at home. They're even playing Notre Dame next year at home. I mean, where's the competitive factor in that schedule? They go to the Swamp. That's it.
I think the SEC tried to help them out because Texas came in the league and they threw such a fit. And they did this as like, hey, here you go. This is a nice thing. And the same thing, I have a conspiracy theory. And like I said, I don't know if it's true. I don't know if it's not true. Sounds like it could be true, and it feels like it could be true. But I think the SEC is punitively going at Alabama and Mississippi State for being the leaders in this 8-game conference schedule thing, because I think the league actually wanted to go to 9, and they didn't foresee so much pushback. And honestly, so much pushback with somebody like Alabama at the forefront of it, with Mississippi State as the ringleader, as well as Alabama. I think it was a punitive decision by the league with the way that Alabama and Mississippi State was scheduled.
Yeah, Mississippi State has a pretty brutal look next year. We'll see how that ends up shaping out when the schedule actually comes out and how they have them go at each other. But they got a pretty brutal dose, I would have to say. Florida got a pretty brutal schedule coming up for 2024. So Billy Napier might be out by 2025. So with that brutalness coming, so I would say though, I think probably Florida and Mississippi State probably got the harder of the two. Alabama, I don't feel like it. I feel like Bama and Georgia have escaped really having to play each other in the regular season so many times. It's just fair at this point.
Well, when you look at Alabama having to go to Oklahoma, they get Tennessee back and they do all that. They get the lion's share of the teams that are in a successful run from the top tier. That's the reason Alabama is in this conversation. Mississippi State, their home schedule, November has a chance to be an absolute bear for them in a similar way that it was for Ole Miss last year. I mean, they could end up with like a Georgia and a Tennessee as well as a going to Ole Miss all in the month of November. So it'll be interesting to see that as well. Now, we talked about the schedule. We talked about that. Now, honest question. Okay, I asked Tom about this yesterday, so this isn't special. But I'm going to see the Flash tonight. Or I should say I did go see Flash on Friday night. Are you going to see the Flash?
Not yet. No. I haven't made
No.
plans.
You're not a comic book movie person?
I am. I just haven't really. Eventually, I'll see it.
Okay. All right. What about Indiana Jones? 2 weeks away.
Oh, I'll definitely go. Yeah.
You can't see it on the screen here, but I do have the Holy Grail behind me and the rock from Temple of Doom. Doom.
Big on that series. I'll definitely be going to see that. So.
All right. So thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcast, including YouTube. We're part of the Locked On College Network. It's your team every day. Cara, thank you so much for stopping by, and we'll talk to you next week, hopefully without the echo.
Hotty toddy.
Hotty toddy.